there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel Bandy's Books, and today is Tuesday, so we're here for Tag Tuesday video. Today we're going to be doing the Spring Has Sprung book tag. This is a tag that I actually found on a book blog. It was originally created by the book blog Getting Through Anxiety, and this is a fun tag. It's just got a bunch of prompts that relate to the spring, and since spring literally just started a few days ago officially, I thought this seemed appropriate. Flowers, Your Most Beautiful Book Inside and Out. So I picked up Magic Steeped in Poison and Venom Dark and Sweet by Judy. These books are just stunningly gorgeous. I really love the cover design on these, and the story inside is pretty cool too. These are young adult fantasy, but I love that the magic system within the story is based on tea and herbal remedies. It's not like the most in-your-face magic system that I've ever seen. And I love that there's a lot of cultural elements mixed in. It's just a really cool, good series. It's a fun read, not the most complex book that I've ever read, but I enjoy it. And like I said, these covers are just so pretty. Grass, a book you find others liked more than you did. So the book that I picked for this is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. This is a book that has a cult following on Book Talk, on Bookstagram. I see it all over bookish social media. I thought that this was going to be the best book I ever read. It is a dark academia of sorts, and maybe it's just not the right genre for me, but I read this book and it was okay. I mean, it wasn't like a horrible book or anything, but I definitely did not understand why this has so much hype. It was like something that I read and I feel like I barely remember what actually happened in the book. I barely remember the characters. I don't know, I just didn't engage with it the way that I expected to with the amount of hype that it had. But I do find that happens a lot with these like really popular books. A lot of the times I feel sadly disappointed. Rain, a great book that lifts your spirits when you're down. So I feel like there is one go-to book for me right now that is like such a cheerful, happy book that it always makes me feel better. And that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is such a warm, fluffy book. I don't know how you could read this and not feel better. I know not everybody loves this. I've seen once in a while, you know, like a 3-star review, 2-star review, people that just didn't get it. But I would argue that their hearts are made out of ice. This is like the warmest, fluffiest book ever, and it makes me smile just thinking about it. I don't know, there's just really nothing that I could say about it that would make me feel like it's not good at what it's supposed to do, which is make you feel good. Do, a book that made you feel alive. So I've been raving about this book a lot lately, and that's The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This is probably the most like alive feeling book I've read in a while. It's a lot of action, adventure, fantasy, sailing on the seas, badass pirates. Really, it has a bit of everything that makes an adventure exciting, and it definitely like charged me up while I was reading it. I felt energetic and excited, and I just really wanted to figure out where the story was going. Storms, a book you found unpredictable. So I recently finished The Vegetarian by Han King. This is a very short book, as you can see, and boy was this a wild ride. We have a woman who decides she's going to become a vegetarian, and she's in South Korea in a time in which vegetarianism is kind of a unusual thing, and it causes a big stir within her family. We see the story through the eyes of her husband, her sister, and her brother-in-law, and this book went places I did not expect it to go. I knew it was going to be about social protest and this woman's resolute desire to be a vegetarian. I did not plan for all of the other stuff that happened within it. It is, wow, a book that I don't think you could predict even if you tried. Rainbow, a book that you struggled with but you're glad to have finished. So my book for this prompt is Glory by No Violet Bulawayo. I overall really liked this book. It is satire of Zimbabwean politics, in particular Robert Mugabe and the coup d'etat that overthrew him. I think that this is a really clever satire. It's well done, super well researched and written. It's just that there's a lot of things that, like a lot of little details that I didn't know a lot about. I know the general oversight of Zimbabwean politics. I knew who Mugabe was. I knew a bit about the coup that overthrew him, but there's just a level of detail in this that I didn't have enough knowledge for, I think. I did still find it enjoyable, and ultimately I learned a lot from it, but it did require me to reread sections and do a little bit of research to kind of back up what I was reading and understand who different people were supposed to be in the story. That said, I'm super glad that I persevered because overall I think this was a spectacular book. Chilly Weather, a book you couldn't finish or didn't enjoy. So the last book that I remember really disliking, and not because of like a difference in opinion, but just because I thought it was a terrible book, was Verity by Colleen Hoover. I have a tough relationship with Colleen Hoover. I DNF'd It Ends With Us a while back, like last year sometime. I decided I was going to give that a try because that was the book that everybody raved about. And I DNF'd it like, I don't know, 100 pages in. I couldn't stand it. So I was told that, you know, if you're not into like toxic relationships and like the glorification or the romance of it, then to try Verity because it's a psychological thriller. And I don't know by what definition that's a psychological thriller, but God, I hated that book. I finished it just because I was like, this has to get better somewhere, and it did not. Instead, it just was a lot of creepy sex and stalkerish behavior and just ick. It's gross. So that was probably the most vividly uncomfortable book that I did not enjoy that I've persevered through recently. Green, a book you haven't read yet, but you really want to. So this is on my TBR this month, and that's Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafka. This is a book that has been receiving a lot of really positive feedback. My mom actually just read it and had pretty decent things to say about it. And I know that it's about a man who is on death row, and it's told through the eyes of his victims instead of him, I think, if I remember correctly, maybe like the prosecutors and the people involved in his trial. I have seen a lot of really good reviews of this. A couple people that I really respect as reviewers have said that it's one of their favorite books, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it. I'm hoping probably in the next couple days I'm going to start this. Pink, a book in which you really felt a strong connection with the characters. So I kind of struggled with this one. I was trying to think of a book in which I really felt like I related to the characters. And I mean, there's a multitude of books where I relate to a character in one way or another, but a book where I feel like deeply understood by the character or like I really align with the character, I don't know. I think maybe the closest one recently was Lessons in Chemistry. This was a book that features a woman scientist in like the 1950s, and she's facing a lot of misogyny, and she's basically condescended to constantly, treated like she's incompetent, like she's, oh, that's cute, honey, you want to go play with your little science kit. And she ends up creating a TV show where she's cooking and using cooking to teach chemistry. It's just a really clever, sharp, observant sort of a book. And it's something that I related to because I've worked in a male-dominated industry most of my life. I am a chef, and for most of my life, the culinary world has been a very male-dominated industry, very much an old boys club, a lot of sexual harassment, things like that. It's gotten better in the last handful of years for sure. There are more female chefs, and workplace environments are, you know, still a little wild, but they've gotten a lot better than what they were. But I related to some of the things that the character goes through in the book and her desire to persevere and just some of the struggles that she overcomes. I think it's a book that likely most women would relate to. I don't know too many women that wouldn't read a story about a woman struggling in the face of sexism and not at least on some little level relate to it to a certain degree. Purple, a book that made you feel safe. So I couldn't come up with anything for this prompt because I have never, I don't think, had the distinct feeling of safety after reading a book. For me, this is a strange prompt because I don't know that books inspire a feeling of safety in me. Maybe comfort. I could see like comfort, I guess maybe being identified as safety, but yeah, for me, I really couldn't come up with anything for this. Orange, an intelligently written book. So I recently read The Book of Goose by Yi-Yun Lee, and this book is very interesting. It is about two friends. One of them is extremely talented and like literary, and she's got all these big high-minded ideas of what she wants to write for a book, but she's not a very likable person. Nobody in the town likes her. Nobody wants to be around her. They can't stand her when she talks. So she basically convinces her best friend to take the credit for this book that's being written. And all of a sudden, publishers are interested in this book. It becomes a big sensation, and her friend becomes a child celebrity, basically, a child prodigy author. And she's being shipped off to boarding school in England and being taught about writing and being pressured to write all these books and everything. To me, it just felt like this book was thumbing its nose at the publishing industry and like the concept of prodigy authors and like the hype around these like high-minded literary books. which is hilarious because this book is high-minded and literary. It's very, such a self-aware book. I thought that was really clever and interesting. And I loved the way that they just poke fun at, you know, the prestige of writing and the hype around it. In particular, there's a part where they're talking about the book that's been published and how it was so shocking because it describes this like little French village, and it's like a farm village, and I guess the book goes into like graphic detail of like all these shocking things that are occurring in this town. And these two girls just like completely made it all up. It wasn't like based on any actual factual things that are happening. It's like basically the one friend was like, let me just put the most subversive stuff in this book as possible and let's see what we can get away with. And then it's like turned into this like, oh my gosh, stunning literary masterpiece. It's just really amusing. And I felt like, again, it was such a self-aware book. It for me was a really intelligently written book. Yellow, a book that puts a smile on your face. So I picked Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt for this one because who can't smile when they're reading a book in the POV of a giant Pacific octopus named Marcellus? Marcellus is the coolest character. I could have just read an entire book from his perspective. And Tova's pretty great too. I really enjoyed her. This is another one of those books where ultimately it's kind of a feel-good. While this book does touch lightly on the themes of death and grief, it is ultimately a book that ends in a feel-good way. It leaves you uplifted, and I really enjoyed this. I think this is definitely one that made me smile when I read it. So that's the end of the Spring Has Sprung book tag. I am not going to tag anyone on this officially, so if you're watching it and you're interested in doing it, consider yourself tagged. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and comment down below, what is your favorite part of spring? I think my favorite part of spring is the bags of the mini Cadbury crunchy eggs that start to show up in the grocery store. I look forward to eating those all year round, and I know it's spring when they start to show up. And if you're not already subscribed to this video, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below as well as the notification bell. That way you never miss a video and we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.